Hi, I'm Charles Beckwith at FashionTechGuru on Twitter, Instagram, and just about everywhere else. It is May 7th, 2020, and this is my fifth weekly video log talking about what's going on in my world. The 250th episode of American Fashion Podcast premiered on Monday, finally got published on Monday, and I'm really happy with it. We just had the perfect guest, Natalie Channon, the founder of Alabama Channon, which is a fashion brand based in Florence, Alabama. And she's a star. She's a person who's been leading the charge in the fashion industry for change for a long time. And just a hero to so many other people in the business. And it's a great interview. I'm just so happy we're finally able to share it. We recorded it during New York Fashion Week back in February, and I've been saving it to release as our 250th episode because it was just so perfect to hit that milestone with someone who's such a big part of the change we advocate with the program every week. I've been trying to set up a bank account for one of my startups, and being under quarantine and not being able to just walk into a bank and sit down with a banker, trying to do this remotely has been just the most ridiculous process. I just reached a part of the process where they mailed me a form that they want me to fill out by hand and fax back to them in 2020. They also sent me the form through their own special heavily encrypted email system as a PDF. So they emailed it to me through an encrypted system, but they want me to fax it back. I haven't seen a fax machine that wasn't like part of a printer as an extra feature in decades. I don't have a landline. The only time I've seen a sign for a shop with a fax machine recently was maybe a copy store or a notary office, and they're all closed. This is just, I hate big business. I hate their inefficiency, their inane processes, their logic that isn't logical at all. You look at something like this, especially knowing how insecure faxes really are compared to properly encrypted communications, it's just monumentally inept thinking to have this as the process. And you just wonder in amazement how these companies got so big if this is how they work. Don't even get me started on the SBA funding process. I mean, um, let's see. I'm continuing to work on my work with my team on my startup, the Pod, which is coming together very quickly. We're looking at having a platform built and users onboarded sometime in July, which is just really fast, really exciting. I'm happy with the team that I've put together, and we're having productive meetings and good work sessions. And I was looking for a graphic designer slash creative director to come on as one of the last roles that we still had to fill. But the more I thought about it, and the more I think I should just do that job for the first version of the product, because I'm making all these specifications as text, and for a lot of them, it's like the text doesn't quite convey it. You have to draw it and write it out. And if I'm gonna draw it, I should just draw it with software. So at first I didn't want to do it because we were using this platform called InVision Studio that Max, our CTO, said, hey, we should use this because it's what I've been using, but it doesn't work for me. And I'm really fast in Adobe Illustrator. I didn't know how to use InVision Studio, and it was just awkward. So I was talking to the front end developer, and what he really needs is just rough layouts and SVG files of the actual icons, like the little magnifying glass for search and things like that, which I can make so easily in Adobe Illustrator. So that's why I've been doing the last few days. Um, a big part of the platform is the forum system, and that's coming up in the build pretty soon. And I've been doing the mock-ups for that, new mock-ups for that, um, kind of writing out an outline of how it functions. We already had an outline of it, but I'm getting a lot more specific, and now that I'm actually drawing it, as I draw it, I'm getting better ideas for it and refining it. And so the development team's been working on login and creating profiles and users and that sort of stuff first, and then they're moving on to a different section next. So I'm kind of 2 steps ahead of them. So I still have a little bit of time to make changes and make alterations in how the functionality of the forum is supposed to work, and make improvements before they get to it. So I'm pretty happy with that. That's coming on better, and I feel really good about it. I was worried about handing off um, the user experience, and now that I've kind of decided not to hand that off, where the front end developer and I are just gonna do it together, and I'm gonna have a much more direct role in that. I feel a lot more comfortable. I felt like I was kind of abdicating a big part of my role by just writing it out as notes, and not actually drawing and saying, okay, if you click here, this goes over here, and actually drawing, arrows and lines and making it very clear. So yeah, we needed a server. The developers were developing stuff on their own computers, and we need a shared machine so that the code runs the same on the same machine. So we were looking at different hosting solutions, and in the startup world, everybody tends to use this Amazon EC2 cloud system, where it's very scalable. You turn on an Amazon account, and you set up your computer, and then if you need more capacity, you just kind of upgrade, and it upgrades on the fly. But we don't need that immediately. We can build it smarter and smaller. Um, and we were running the cost calculator on the EC2 thing, and it was just really high. Because I've been using servers from a company in Germany called Hetzner for years. And even though, with Amazon, you get this delivery network where their servers are all over the world. So wherever a user is, the server is physically close to them. So there's a drop in the latency. So if I click on something, it takes less time for that click to go to that computer, go to the server, and then the server to respond to the click, and something back and me to get a response. So if we're only in one data center with one computer, then that's a less good experience for the users. But if a startup, you're bootstrapping, and you've got to make these choices. And we can always move up to a cloud solution later once we're making money. So yeah, we looked at like DreamHost and Bluehost and all these things, and they all looked like it was like you get like 8 gigs of RAM and one processor, and it's $90 a month or something. And then Hetzner, they've got this thing. We got a 6-core processor, 64 gigs of RAM, two 512 gigabyte SSD drives in a RAID 1 software configuration. So it's 2 hard drives, but the data is mirrored. So if one of the hard drives fails, you don't lose your data. So it's built for performance for a production machine that's out there on the front line, of having users on it. So, and then they guarantee a 1 gigabit connection to that machine in their data center, and it's only 39 euros to set it up for like one-time fee, and then 34 euros per month. And if the US economy happens to completely tank and Europe really gets their stuff together and the euro goes way up in value, then we're in trouble. But as long as things continue to be just horrible everywhere, we're fine. Yeah, and then looking at the pricing on the EC2, it looked like it was for something similar. It's going to be about $350 a month. So it's almost 10 times as expensive to go with Amazon for processing data, for having your database and other things in Amazon systems. But then we do want to use an S3 bucket from Amazon, which is it's a content delivery network. So all the images and video files will still be with Amazon. And so they'll be close to the customers, the users. They'll be distributed around the world. But the S3, the bucket of files, is a lot less expensive than their EC2 thing. That's the actual computing. So 100 gigabytes of traffic is like $9. And if we get up to the point where we're doing 100 gigabytes of traffic in a month and we don't have users paying like collectively more than $9 a month, we're really doing something wrong and we should shut down the company. Like if we get to the point where our Amazon S3 bill is killing us and the users aren't paying for it, it's like that's completely backwards. So for the moment we're going with like we're running our own physical computer in a data center. And Hetzner just added a data center in Finland, I guess. So my other servers with them have been outside Nuremberg, but this one's actually in Helsinki, which is kind of cool. I've never had a computer in Helsinki. So I've been plugging away at this at the startup and trying to get everything ready for the team before they need it, just so we can keep everything moving fast. And I felt bad yesterday because our vice president of business development sent me an email with some notes, and I couldn't get back to him for a couple hours because I was just busy working on stuff. He sent me great notes, and I wanted to reply immediately, but I didn't have the brain space for it. But so I'm worried about getting exhausted and getting stressed out because there's this whole coronavirus thing going on. If I go out to the grocery store or to the pharmacy and I get exposed and I get sick, I don't want to have a compromised immune system because I'm stressed out, because I'm exhausted from work. So I'm forcing myself to take some breaks. I've been continuing to watch Narcos on Netflix, which is a really good show if you haven't watched it. It's violent, but as I was telling my mom, the intrigue is worth watching the violence, because it's a smart show. I like Narcos a lot, and so then the other thing I did was this weekend I went out on my terrace in the back. There's a door in my bedroom that goes out to a terrace on the back of the building. I live on the third floor of a brownstone, a townhouse in Harlem, and I have this little terrace that's it's the width of my apartment, and it's I don't know, I guess about 8 or 9 feet deep. So it's like it's a good size. Yeah, it's about half the size of my bedroom. There's a terrace out back, and it's got this bamboo fence around it. And the first year I was here, I moved in kind of late in the spring, and it was a little too late to plant stuff because it was really hot already. It was a really hot day when I moved in. But I cleaned up the terrace, and then the following spring I planted a bunch of stuff. I went to the garden center and got like vegetables, and I had a chili plant in a hanging pot, and I liked that. That was fun. It was this little private green space. Like I looked out the window from my bed, and I'm looking at this little garden that I have, no green grass. It's just tiles out there, but there are all these plants and flowers and color, and it was nice. Uh, but then the next year, I was traveling in the spring, and by the time I got back, it was too hot to plant again, and I was just busy, so I kind of neglected it. So this weekend I was out there, and I filled a whole big black garbage bag, like a yard bag, full of dead leaves. That there are no trees on my terrace. These leaves had come from elsewhere. There were all these dead leaves out there, and there are all these weeds in the flower boxes. Even though I use new potting soil, that there's just all this wind and get seeds from everywhere. There's a lot of dust in New York, debris blowing in. So anyway, I was out there. I filled this huge garbage bag full of weeds and leaves and trash from the terrace, and I swept it off and dumped the excess water out of the pots, because if you got a plant in there, it drinks the water. But if there's no plant in there and it's just weeds, they don't really drink enough of the water to when it rains to keep it from being soggy. So I had to pour out all this nasty water. But I've got a delivery coming of fresh potting soil and a bunch of plants. So I think that's coming next week, because the garden center is pretty busy. So I'm kind of excited about that. Then I'll have that nice, quiet, private green space again, and especially with everything that's going on where you can't be outside. I'll have a place to be outside. Can't kind of run around and get a lot of exercise out there. It's kind of a confined space, but maybe I'll record one of these video logs from out there once I get stuff planted. But yeah, that's what's kind of going on. I'm thinking about doing some sort of covering out there for the sun, so that I can spend more time out there further into the summer where it's hotter. Because I do not tan. I go immediately from rare to crispy, and the crispy hurts. So, but there's a lot of wind, as I said, and so I was trying to figure out how to secure something out there. Maybe it would be something I have to take down every time I want to put it up and have some shade. I have to put it up and take it down. I don't know. That would be a pain. But there's this bamboo screen that's around. It's about 6 feet high. It goes all the way around the terrace, and it gives me a lot of privacy. And I mentioned that in a group chat that a bunch of my friends are in, and my friend Sergi asked me if I was worried about, with the bamboo, I was worried about rogue pandas. And to that, I replied, "What do you think I've been eating?"